Hello and welcome to The Interview, HT's weekly show where we bring you face to face with people who matter. In our first edition, we have with us Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the show, Mr. Puri. Let me start with the first key question on the UK strain of the virus. Is it sensible or was it sensible keeping the numbers? We started with 2, 10, 20, 90, and we are still counting to let flights come in.
Decisions on whether we need to continue civil aviation operations or we need to circumscribe those or suspend them altogether, all these decisions are taken by those who have domain knowledge, those who have absolute up-to-date information on what is happening. So insofar as the UK strain is concerned, let me give you the background. We were running 60 plus flights a week between India and the United Kingdom. Then talk came about a UK strain which caused concern not only in the United Kingdom but amongst health authorities all over the world. Following that, there was a temporary suspension of flights for 1 week. During that course of the temporary suspension, genome sequencing was done of the passengers who came in. Then the concerned medical professionals decided that we would be best served not by curtailing or stopping flights altogether, but by doing two things. One, to reduce the total number of flights to 50% of those prior to the temporary suspension. That meant from 60 flights, we were down to 30 flights a week, distributed between carriers of the United Kingdom and us, and to introduce an additional layer of protection. Earlier, all passengers coming to India were required to test RT-PCR test before boarding a flight, and only if you tested negative, you could board the flight, and then you could come to India, depending on the protocols available in different states, Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and so on. This time we introduced another layer. That is, even if you had a negative report, you were to test again on arrival, and even if you had tested negative in a second subsequent test, you were still confined to 1 week's mandatory institutional quarantine. So the decision taken was that with these additional layers of protection, we would be all right. And if we ever come to the conclusion that there is cause for anxiety or we need to slow down, we can do that and stop. By and large, the people that we are catering to are people who have a right to be in India. We don't have any tourists coming in.
But the fact remains that the numbers are increasing. It was 2, as I said, it was 10, 20, 90, and we are still counting. So reducing flights or curtailing flights does not really solve the problem.
But the point is different. We would not let anybody come in if somebody told us that as a result of the genome sequencing that we are running any risk. Our people say that the particular strain which the United Kingdom is producing, we are capable of dealing with it with the same manner that we are dealing with the other strains. That is the reason on which we let them come in.
Why come to that stage where you have to deal with it? Why not stop it at the outset? And this takes me back to February last year when Trump came in. We had this gala event in Gujarat, and after that the virus spread like wildfire. So why come to that stage? I mean, why are we talking of tackling it? Why are we not stopping it from entering? That is my question as a layperson.
You are not a layperson. You are a very intelligent print journalist and anchor. Now you are going to be a famous, a web journalist or a TV journalist. First of all, I disagree with your basic contention. When the president came in, when the 45th president came into India in February, at that stage, even the WHO had not termed this as a pandemic. In fact, speaking in a press conference, I turned around and called it a pandemic. The WHO was still talking about a health emergency. So far as the Gujarat event is concerned, let me tell you, it was done under very careful condition. and there's no causality. In fact, after many months, I mean, the 45th president came here a year ago. You're the first person after 1 year who's reminding me about, and that is not a super spreader event.
In 2021, what is the government's plan to help the aviation sector? How much are you going to shell out to help that industry, which has suffered?
The good news about civil aviation is that civil aviation is a critical driver of economic growth in India. Pre-COVID, we were at a certain figure in civil aviation. We will have reached that figure in about 10 days' time. And I'm very clear that if the current trends continue, if this narrative, a positive narrative coming from the vaccine, if that continues, people stop agonizing about problems in Latin America, Africa, and the UK, people are determined to travel. So we will be reaching pre-COVID levels by the end of February, definitely. My own view is that we will be reaching definitely by mid-February. But let me tell you what we have done for the civil aviation sector and what we can do going forward. First of all, in January 2020, a fuel throughput charge was rationalized. Then central excise duty on aviation turbine fuel was reduced to 11% in October 2018.
Let's that we know, but let's talk of 2021. What are the plans of the government to help the aviation sector? Let's
first of all, the aviation sector, most of the airlines today are operating. We have opened up 80% already. We have rationalized airspace. Many of the individual airline operators have problems, which means they owe money to the Airports Authority of India or they owe money to someone else. Well, we can provide a benign framework. What we can do is we can tell the Airports Authority, by give them a little more time. The finance minister has taken many measures already where, loans which were due, they put a moratorium on them. So a lot of those measures have been taken. Going forward, I think two things. One, we are going to look at cargo in a very big way. Two large gateway airports have shown positive growth in air cargo. I mentioned air cargo. Bengaluru 7%, Chennai 4%. I am very keen that Indian carriers regain the GDP when it comes to international aviation. Privatization, providing business opportunities, and a special focus on cargo.
Yes, but the industry needs hand holding because of the pandemic. And how is the government hand holding that? These are all plans you've given me, which are very grand and sound very good. But in terms of specific terms of hand holding, what is the aviation sector or the person who's working in the industry get from the government in 2021? Just one or 2 points.
Well, we are holding hands. That's why we've reached this place. We've opened up the sector to 80% of traffic. If somebody has a problem, we have stepped in with the Airports Authority and say, don't go and encash your bank guarantee because the airline will go down. That is not hand holding. That is, you're holding them from the bottom and making sure that they don't fall and collapse. This is much more than hand holding. Look, you are going to be always placed in a position where they will go to the press and say, government ko bolo cash handout correct. Sorry, that's not the model here. If there is a choice between people who are starving, 800 million people who had to be fed for 9 months, and supporting any other sector, government cannot be in the business of underwriting business deficits.
You spoke about privatization. Let me ask you straight that rules were flouted for Adani. The Economic Affairs Department had said that any bidder should not get more than 2 airports. He got 6.
We have issued a very comprehensive press release, which makes the newspapers who said that look a little silly. Who said what? Let me remind you. There's an empowered group of secretaries. What happened? Both in the Niti Aayog and the Ministry of Finance, some junior officer suggested during a meeting that maybe only a cap should be placed and nobody should be allowed to bid. That was examined. That suggestion was examined. And they came to the conclusion that it would make much more economic sense if you allow somebody to bid. Let me assure you, Kumkum, as far as I'm concerned, as a minister, I would not be defending this if it happened before my time. I became minister in June 2019. This happened in 2018. The award was given, and now we've completed it. It is precisely because of this kind of irresponsible suggestion which come from competitor. I mean, there's an airport in one southern state. They're going on and on. They've been to the High Court. High Court has thrown it out, passed severe strictures against them. They've gone to the court, Supreme Court. They've gone again. Now, are we going to hold back the development of the country just because of a few people are willing to throw one name up or some other names up? Let's look at the facts of the matter.
Whenever you board a flight, the first instruction is put your own oxygen mask before helping others. Now, by that principle, don't you think exporting the vaccine should have waited a while, and we should have first taken care of all our people, or maybe more than half, and then export it?
You see, it's a valid question to ask. But if you have to
Thank
run a
you.
country and you have to look at your obligations towards people who are not as fortunate as to have this thing, then it's a question, I'm afraid, which is a little more complicated, because some of the vaccines which are going out are not because we are exporting them. The vaccines are going out because there are international arrangements. I mean, UNICEF, there are, I think, international organization. I mean, please realize that there is always a high degree of interdependence between countries. And what we have to ensure is that our own people get the vaccine first. That we have been able to ensure. Let the message be loud and clear. We are vaccinating Indians first. And we have enough supply to vaccinate others. So whatever vaccine is going out for other purposes, these are part of your long-standing friendships. You also want to look after people who are, in a country which is friendly to you, especially in our neighborhood where you have least developed countries.
Central Vista, which is, of course, the favorite topic, your favorite topic, pet project. The Supreme Court, of course, gave a judgment in your favor, but there is a dissenting judgment by Justice Khanna. And he said that the government didn't take into consideration the people's opinion or the concerns of the public. What would you say on that?
Very simple. I'm on record to say we welcome the judgment of the Supreme Court. We welcome the majority opinion as much as we welcome the minority opinion. We have always said we want to play by the rules. If in the process somebody got the impression that we were not consulting enough, all I can do is I can place all the consultations we have done in the public domain, and then people can judge. And I've said all the past consultations should be put in the public domain. But let me make it loud and clear. We are working under a constitution where there is a division of responsibility. It is for the executive to decide whether we need a new parliament building or not. The executive would be failing. The need for a new parliament building was flagged as long back as
Sure.
1985 because of the maintenance. This was never a building designed for the bicameral legislature of an independent country. It was started in 1920 when you never thought that India would be an independent country. So building a new
It
parliament,
is,
that decision is ours. And the
yeah,
demand has
it is,
come from the presiding officers, not only the presiding officers of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha now, it has come from the presiding
yeah,
officers of a Congress UPA government. Meera Kumar,
sure.
secretary, also asked for a new parliament building.
Don't you think a policy of coexistence, which means the existing plus the new, should have been there rather than demolish and build? That
No,
is
no,
my
but
basic
what are you
question.
saying? We are doing precisely that. We are not demolishing
How?
anything. The old will exist with the new. The old building is
Right.
not
But
going away.
no, but it's being converted into a museum. And the other
No, no,
buildings in the Central Vista plan are being demolished. There are other buildings
no,
which are being demolished.
nothing. No, no, hold on. All the iconic heritage building, nothing is being demolished. Nothing. North Block, South Block, Parliament, it will remain as it is.
So we know that.
Only the usage will change. Usage will change.
So why can't some parts of the old parliament also be used and
It
coexistence
will be
and
used.
use the new
Who's going
parliament?
to? No. I'm sorry.
Why
I
convert it
think
into a museum?
no, not at all. Not at all. The museums will be in other places. There's Indira Gandhi Performing Arts. It's being rebuilt. North Block and South Block. Parliament will remain Parliament, including the old building. It will have to
I'm
be
going to
regutted and redone from inside. It will not be a museum. It will have only work and use related to parliamentary activities.
just explain this, please, because there's a lot of misconception on this. The
There is no
existing,
misconception. There's no misconception. Parliament is not being converted into a museum. Parliament will be used for parliamentary related activities. And just now, the sitting space there is not enough. You have covered all the areas. You're built behind the existing. So the new parliament building will act. The new one will be in perfect harmony with the old one. And the old one will also be part of the parliament complex. Very clear on that.
okay, there is no, it's not going to be converted into a museum
Not
and
at all.
rented.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay. Two quick questions, and then I'll let you go. Wouldn't it have been more appropriate for the president to inaugurate the new parliament rather than the prime minister?
Well, this is a decision. This is a decision which the concerned people have to take. The president wrote a beautiful letter to the prime minister, and this is, you're going into areas of where executive responsibility comes and where constitutional listing comes. And I think the very nice letter from the president and the vice president, I think they answer and respond to that controversy also. I think we should encourage anyone who thinks that consultation is an imperative. I agree. In a democracy, you must consult. But consultation doesn't mean that if one individual's views are not accepted, that individual has a veto. I think that's cuckoo land. That's not democracy. So anybody says, no, but my views is, you're entitled to your view. You have a democratically elected government which has 303 members in the Lok Sabha and a near majority in the Rajya Sabha. Surely you must allow them to take the decision making for which they are responsible. Number one. Number two, I want to tell you absolutely in a candid way, much of the criticism that is coming from quarters which themselves have advocated these things.
You said once to me that the Kartarpur Gurudwara should have been on this side of the border. You still hold
Well,
that?
I didn't. Look. What I said to you. I have to remember very carefully. I've known you so long, and you can quote conversations 35, 40 years ago. Let me tell you, I blame the cartographer. I blame the cartographer not only in what happened on the India-Pakistan boundary. I blame the cartographer about what happened, for instance, in a place like Syria. No, I don't want to go into Syria. How is it that the Guru Maharaj's most important places, some are on this side of the border and some are on the other side of the border? You could have easily, a cartographer could have, drawn the line a little on this side. Now, for instance, Dera Baba Nanak is here, Sultanpur Lodi is on this side, and Kartarpur Sahib is on the other side. It's a fact of history. We have to live with that history. So what can we do?
Mr. Puri, thank you very much for your time, your patience, and tolerating many questions which you wish I had not asked. Thank you very much.
I'm very happy you asked them. You tried. I don't know how many times you've done this. If this is your boni, I don't know. You tried to provoke me. I happily took them forward and I gave it back in the same spirit in which you asked the question. The question was provocative. Where I thought you were wrong, I told you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.